Yes. We'll come to this. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. No, you had some lovely people outside. They were they were lovely. They were lovely. They didn't quite understand that everyone they thought had shown up to support them was on my staff. But no, we didn't. We have good outfits. We were all in black. We got the balaclavas, the ski masks. Milo sucks. Well, yes. No, it was lovely. It was lovely. All right, look. Let's get to the serious stuff. No, not Siri. Siri, go fuck yourself. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to the Dangerous Faggot Tour. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've come dressed, depending on your perspective, either as a sort of late decadent period Roman emperor meets protester, or sort of 14th century Muslim, too much makeup and a predilection for 7-year-old boys. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. All right. Maybe because of my Greek heritage, I've always dreamed of being Spartan. I have. Well, I have. Sometimes people accuse me of wanting to take America back to the 50s. And I say, well, yes, the 650s, BC, when men were men, and men fucked men throughout life, and went out to fight wars and were thoroughly respectable and reasonable and wouldn't have stood for this shit. Right. Now, not so much to be part of one of the most fanatical armies on earth, but I would have liked to be a Spartan, partly for the sweaty man orgies, but partly also because, look to the left of this picture. Is that an atom bomb? It's not very aerodynamic, is it? I think it might be a Photoshop. Oh, the blue mosque. Anyone been to Istanbul? Anyone been to Istanbul? No, you're not wasting your time. Until we win it back. Until it is Constantinople again. There's no point going. Why would you go? Why would you go? I've had the gall to convert, to convert churches into mosques. Well, when that thing is once again pointed toward Rome, then it's probably worth going to Turkey. All right, okay. This speech is about war. Something America came to terms with dramatically 3/4 centuries ago. Today, the 75th anniversary of Japan's attack on the American Navy at Pearl Harbor. We should all bow our heads for a moment and thank God for the men in Navy uniforms who keep us free, and also for being so hot. Not quite as gay as the Air Force, but a little more sexually malleable than the Army. They are definitely my favorites. Navy men are behind a great deal of Western civilization's progress in recent centuries, including such things as quashing the loathsome trade in slaves, which was mixed up with the Barbary pirates, who of course worshipped Allah. And for most of those recent centuries, it was my homeland's glorious British Navy who deserved most of the credit. In the middle of the last century, we gloried in that. Britain has gone down the path of leftist guilt for its imperial past, but I'm glad the United States is still proud, for the most part, of its military history. And it should be. Quite like for it to be proud of its military future too, which we'll talk about this evening. Of course, since that fateful day 75 years ago, the baton has passed from the Royal Navy to your own glorious US Navy. US Navy now the best naval force in the world. The best... It is. Long may it guard the freedom of us all. And let's not forget the Navy has given this country's leaders like John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and more recently Stephen K. Bannon, one of Donald Trump's latest appointments. So one of many very admirable naval graduates. I've personally been wondering why leftists only compared Trump to Hitler and never to Japan's Emperor Hirohito. I guess they're racist against Asians. We'll return to this war theme. We will return to this in a minute. I have to touch on your school and on the state of Michigan. Now, one of the favorite things I've learned about Michigan State is that they set up a women's course in 1896. What trailblazers you were. But it wasn't gender studies. It wasn't women's studies as we know it today. They taught women home economics, cooking, liberal arts, and some science. So the women's course was actually a useful degree. It didn't just teach those women who opted to be homemakers how to be homemakers, but it also taught women who wanted to turn themselves into the next great NASA scientist or mathematician how to do that too. It didn't teach women how to indulge in grievance and victimhood and whining for a living. It taught women how to actually do things and how to execute their aspirations and their dreams. And your university was one of the very first places anywhere in the Western world to provide an education for women to do that. Of course, being a useful degree that actually taught something productive, how to turn into the perfect wife, the perfect American wife. Who wouldn't want to come home? Even I, might be tempted if I were to come home at sort of 6:15, 6:20 every evening to a hot, steaming roast dinner, and her. Even I could be moved. But not, unlike most women's studies degrees, it wasn't preparing women for a lifetime of begging on Patreon. It wasn't preparing women for a lifetime of online servitude. Now, in October, I have to tell you, Michigan State was part of a nationwide hoax of scary clown sightings. You all remember this? Remember your clown sightings? My goodness, I was very excited about it. During the month leading up to the election, scary clowns made more appearances than Hillary Clinton did on the campaign trail. Now, they did, which is to say none. Now, you have finally on campus got a genuinely scary clown, so you're welcome. And no, look, I understand that some 200 of your fellow students formed a clown posse to hunt them down, which turned out about as successfully as a left-wing journalist's hunt for college rape cases, which is to say no confirmed cases ever found. Now you've found yourself, as I say, a truly scary clown. I'm going to be very disappointed the angry, frightened social justice posse they whip up against me doesn't exceed 200. The state of Michigan, not just your college, but your state, voted for Trump. You voted for Trump. Almost an inconceivable sort of victory. It was a wonderful thing to watch. Now, of course, the fake news media, by which I mean CNN, the New York Times, and all the other people who have lied to and lied about you for decades, never considered the white working-class residents of Michigan might not like being called evil racists clinging to guns and Bibles. Wasn't a surprise to Daddy, of course, who campaigned here to great success, because he knew the Democrats were fucked. This is... He flipped it like so many New York apartments before. Good job, Michigan. Finally, at last, congratulations, you did something better than Ohio. Well done. Oh, come on. You've got to take a little too. I take plenty. You've got to read yourself before you can read other people, Yes, well, finally you beat Ohio or something. Okay, I can't resist. I can't help myself but take shots at my fans. It's my form of affection, we always hurt the ones we love. Can you believe it took the state of Michigan all the way until right before Thanksgiving to certify the vote for Trump? It's almost like they didn't want to admit that Trump won. Perhaps their Soros-funded vote counters broke down in a crying fit every time they were about to confirm the results. The rural counties, of course, uneducated small-town hicks, as the Democrats would call you, all came through for Trump with amazing vote totals. Over 12 counties that voted for Obama switched over to. It's something to celebrate, the decent people of Michigan defeating the Detroit's Democrat machine. Now, as a foreigner, I used to think of Michigan... you come to America and you sort of try to learn what the states are about. Sort of Texas, awesome. Of course it is. Vermont, cancerous. And you learn about Michigan and you sort of have these pictures in your mind of this sort of post-apocalyptic wasteland. Burning cars, dead bodies in the streets, as zombies wandering the corridors, burned out abandoned factories, and it turns out that's only Detroit. The rest of Michigan is really nice. It's actually only the Democrat-controlled areas that are a disaster. This is Detroit before the Democrats came into power. This is it afterwards. There you go. And so the black community has not recognized the pattern here. They've not picked up on what happens if there's a definition of madness. You keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result. You keep voting in Democrat mayors, keep voting in Democrat presidents, expecting your life to get better. Well, your life is not going to get better. Your life is going to end up like this. That brings us to the most interesting election news in the state of Michigan. Jill Stein's recount effort. Jill Stein is a crazy old cunt who... I am informed by my researchers, ran for president this year. I'd never heard of her. Honestly, I pay really close attention to this stuff. I'd never heard of her before this recount stuff. She got 50,000 votes from this state, but somehow has the right to waste $12 million of your taxpayer money for a recount. Now, my research team tells me she's part of something called the Green Party. You think that she'd want that $12 million to make Flint's water less green. But no, she wasn't interested in the environment. It's all about her. She saw Bernie Sanders cash in when he caved to Hillary Clinton. She wanted a piece of the action too. Is she still collecting donations? Anyone know? I don't know. Yeah, it is. I wonder how fat her bank account is now. This is... This is the lizard people-eyed Jill Stein meme we discovered today. No refunds. Of course, they will not find any fraud with Trump's efforts. The entire effort is just so fear, uncertainty, and doubt into the American psyche as we approach the inauguration of the glorious God Emperor. Daddy President. President Daddy. I'm going to host a little party on inauguration. Oh, stop it. Stop it. No. No, you wouldn't want that. I mean, imagine how boring that would be, watching me do this every day of the week. Just ritually, publicly humiliating the New York Times, the Washington Post, Politico. I know there's one of them here. Sending them all to the back and putting, E! Entertainment Television and Vice and Breitbart and InfoWars at the front. And on Tuesdays I'd only answer questions about fashion, what Ivanka's wearing today. On Fridays I'd show up in drag. You don't want that. You don't want that. That'd be awful. That'd be so boring. Goodness, no, good heavens, no. Maybe we'll see. What? Oh, Ivana Wall. Oh, have you seen Ivana Wall? My drag alter ego, Ivana Wall. No, she's hot. She would be conducting the briefings. I would be my own deputy press secretary. On Fridays, Ivana Wall would conduct the press briefings, and she'd answer very serious questions about foreign policy in full drag. It'd be wonderful. Call me, you bastards. Right. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, 6 days of recounts in Wisconsin. 6 days have netted a total of how many votes for Hillary? 0. 0 votes for Hillary. Very sad. According to the Detroit News, over half of Detroit's votes may be ineligible for recounts. Turns out those corpses in the street that voted for Hillary the first time can't be counted the second. Those dead people and zombies and people who never existed who voted for the Democrats mysteriously could not be found. Very stupid of them to ever try to do a recount in Michigan. Now we've won the election. We did it. We've won. Trump is in. Trump can start to make America great again. And in fact, he's already doing it. Our job is to push forward and to win the culture war. Now, the culture war takes many different shapes, many different forms. Sometimes it's the battle against campus cry bullies. You saw some of them outside this evening. I came dressed as one before I put on my laurel wreath. Sometimes it looks like that. Sometimes it's as simple as quote retweeting Lena Dunham and saying, "You are a disgusting fat cunt. Piss off to Canada like you promised." But sometimes it looks different. Sometimes, you have to treat college not like a daycare center, as your left-wing compatriots would like to do, but as a place for controversial ideas. Today we're going to look at a culture war of a much larger scope, and it's a culture war that has been going on for hundreds, in fact thousands of years. It's a culture war that represents a clash of civilizations, and it is the war between Western civilization and radical Islam, or as I like to call it, Islam. I don't care to make the distinction. Now, I know they don't teach you much world history, and I don't want to turn this into a history lecture, but it's critical you understand this is not a new fight. This is not something that just started to happen. Constantinople was the capital of the Byzantine Empire, which was also once known as the Eastern Roman Emperor in its best days. Its fall to Islam in 1453 was a blow the empire never recovered from. Symbolically, it ended the empire, no matter how you look at it. It was bad for Western civilization. Hundreds of years prior, Islam had made big inroads into conquering Europe. Spain especially, and Sicily for some time, both had the misfortune of living under Islam. Now, I know Americans are not great at geography, but try to imagine if you can. Well, I'll help you through it, okay? This is Europe. Europe's really important and cool. Okay. This is... What? What? Well, if you're going to interrupt, make it funny and interesting. What was you saying? No, okay. You're over to Eastern Europe here, Turkey, the Middle East. No, I've got family in Cyprus. They took our fucking orange groves, 1976. Never forget. Okay. No, I'd be even richer if they hadn't done that. Okay, so this is the Middle East over here, super Saharan Africa. Anyway, so these are the battles that Islam fought to conquer the West. Lots of them. And by comparison, this is where the Crusades happened. So when you are told that oh, well, it's also ancient history. Islam is a religion of peace, of course. And what about the Crusades? Well, what about the fucking Crusades? Because historically speaking, geographically speaking, mathematically speaking, this is the territory that Muslims fought over. And that's where the Crusades happened. Just to give you some perspective. What? Police officers haven't turned their ringtones off. It's fine. I don't dare criticize. All right. In 732 AD, an army from Arab-controlled Spain penetrated all the way to Tours, which is just 150 miles from Paris. They were beaten back by the Frankish king Charles Martel. You should know him. He was the daddy of his day. If he hadn't succeeded, the Muslims could well have dominated all of Europe. But Charles Martel beat them back, and he was OG daddy. In the same era, Arabs had also laid siege to Constantinople twice. And 100 years later, were raiding Rome itself. People don't know this stuff because it isn't taught in history class, but Muslims have never stopped trying to conquer Europe. Since there has been Islam, there have been attempts by Muslim leaders to take over Europe in a variety of different ways, using different strategies, whether it is demographics, the refugee crisis, or war. And fortunately, we have had in the past, although not today, we have had in the past leaders who have resisted that. Now, leftist commentators and colonial studies professors. Do you have a colonial studies department here? They constantly bring up the Crusades as an example of Western aggression against Muslims, but they neglect to mention that the Crusades were a response to centuries of Muslim invasion of Europe. and they paled in comparison to the Arab attacks on the continent. If you ever hear this feeble argument, simply show them the map I showed you earlier. Could we go back to the map I showed them earlier? Show them the map I showed you earlier and ask them to justify their statements. You will hear them stuttering and stammering in response. There we go. So the Muslim invasion of the West isn't new. But who would have thought that modern Europe wouldn't fall? Not because of a bearded man with a goat-fucking fixation, but because of Western women. Here... Now,